Retro Racing Reports from Corona Raceway. This is the Winged Outlaw Showdown of November 2nd, 1980. It's a Bruce Flanders and Tom Blattler presentation. There's a couple of really fascinating things going on here with this. To begin with, they only ran a 3-lap main event. Just a 3-lap main event. We'll talk about that in a little bit. One of the promotions that they did was they took Mike Whitehead's sprint car and lifted it 30 feet in the air by a big-ass crane from J. East Crane Rig, and they hung it out there by the front of the racetrack to where everybody could see it driving by to promote the event. That's some pretty good fun. Winged sprint cars did run at Corona previously. It was a SDRA event, San Diego Racing Association, and this was in 1972, so this was been very early. Another thing to note is even though these are effectively the World of Outlaws, they only casually mentioned the name World of Outlaws. I'm not sure exactly why. They were called Outlaws. The Outlaw sprint car guys traveled the country, great big wings and real fast competition, no doubt about that. Be sure to subscribe and like and put your comments down below. We have an introductory article from the program, as well as a welcome letter from Bruce Flanders. We'll hit those, and then we'll talk about the results of the race and why they only ran 3 laps. Wings returned to Southern California. You may have seen winged sprint cars on national television this year, but today's Winged Outlaw Showdown marks the first time in over 10 years in which the popular winged machines have battled in Southern California area. In addition to the first appearance of winged sprint cars in Southern California, today's event at Corona Raceway also marks the return of the fast open-wheel monsters to the Inland Empire half-mile dirt oval since 1971. Back in 1971, the local stars were names like Billy Wilkerson, Paul Jones, Jimmy Oskey, Dick Freeze, Ronnie Ray, and Dick Zimmerman, all of which will not be competing today, although Oskey and Ray are still regulars on the California Racing Association circuit. Names like Doug Wolfgang, Ron Schumann, Tim Green, Shane Carson, and Rick Ferkel now make up a great number of winner circles around the United States, and in today's program, it'll be the visiting stars taking on the local favorites like Dean Thompson, Bobby Jones, Dwayne Fiduska, Bob East, Rip Williams, and Bob Mealy in the first annual California State's Winged Sprint Car Championship, known as the Winged Outlaw Showdown. With the emergence of the popular World of Outlaws campaign, the winged machines have become a major attraction throughout the East Coast and the Midwest, and the local boys could have their hands full in attempting to reach victory lane at the conclusion of today's 30-lap feature. With airfoils now measuring up to 50 square feet, the fuel-burning ground pounders have been recording some of the fastest lap times in oval track history, and we can expect track marks to fall quickly today. So we hope you enjoy the unique event and experience the thrill of winged sprint cars on dirt. That's our introductory article for the event coming up. As a side note, and a CRA fan from the way back days, in my reckoning, there are sprint cars and there are winged sprint cars. There is no such thing as a non-winged sprint car. You can argue that all you want. Go ahead. Here's an introductory letter from Bruce Flanders, who is co-promoting this event with his pal Tom Blattler. Yes, Blattler. Did you ever hear somebody say, well, if I were the promoter, I'd do this? Now, I've worked for a lot of promoters and oftentimes heard myself saying that after a racing event. So, I finally decided it was time to put up or shut up. After today, I may have a different attitude towards race promotion. My partner Tom and I, and all the people involved in putting this together, wanted you to see some of the finest racing in the world. I hope in the checkered flag falls that we've accomplished our mission. There's many people that I'd like to thank, probably starting with Patty Prestige and Jimmy Oskey, for I was the sprint car version 3 years ago. Special thanks to JC Agajanian for letting me announce the first damn sprint car race I ever saw. I wish I could thank all the professional race drivers that have answered all my foolish questions and educated me to special things about their form of racing. In the starter stands has got to be one of the best I've ever seen. Thank you, Steve Vauden. unenviable job of timing and scoring is being covered today very capably by CRA's Dick Hindman. Helping me in the booth today over the PA is the Dean of Motorsports Announcing, Sandy Reed. After working with them many times a year, I'm again honored to work with the CRA officials led by their president, Gary Sokola. A great thank you, Tim Lapari, and your Corona Raceway crew. To our advertisers, sponsors, and insurance guys, push trucks, flagmen, ambulance crews, and United California Bank, thanks a million. You're probably getting tired of reading them, but there's two more. My fiancée, Vicky, for putting up with all the pre-event bull roar, and finally, you, yes you, the fans, because without you, the spectator, there would be nothing like this. That was a welcome note from Mr. Bruce Flanders, who I had the honor of getting to meet several times along the way, and I always enjoyed that. I'm sure many of you in the same boat. All of that writing and things that you'll see with this video all came from Tim Kennedy. We had a 3-lap main event. It followed the trophy dash and heat races and a new track record for qualifying times, which not too hard to imagine. Johnny Anderson, number 18, set a new track record. 19.612, the old track record was way up in the 20s, like a second and a half more. This track, Corona Raceway, was really good for stock cars and that sort of thing, but the high-powered sprint cars tended to tear it up and dry it out and create extremely dusty conditions, and that's what happened in our main event. A couple of cars got together very early on, and our new track record holder, Johnny Anderson out of Sacramento, managed to spin and crash going down the back straight. He went extremely high in the air. There's a lot of photos of it. You can find those online. They're not obviously in this program. So as he came down, hit hard, other cars behind him, also at full speed right at the beginning of the race, came around that corner, and we've got several cars, 6 cars plowed into Johnny Anderson as he laid out there on the racetrack. Everything stopped, obvious red flag condition. I'll put Kennedy's notes up here that were written in real time, and we'll just hold them up there. You can read those for yourselves. Essentially what happened was Anderson's arm was nearly severed in the upper part of the arm. He had a huge concussion. They hauled him off to the hospital. Many of the racers thought he had passed away at the racetrack, but he was alive when he left. He went off to Riverside Hospital. He was in a coma for a couple of weeks, eventually came out of that. Surgeries were successful, and he went on to race midgets a little bit later on. He was not the driver that he was before, as one might imagine, but they called the event after 3 laps. They were on lap 4 when this happened, and so you had 3 official laps, and there you go. So the official winner on the day was Doug Wolfgang, who had started on the pole. He donated half his winnings to the Andersons at the scene. He just said, hey, take half of whatever it is I made and just give it to that guy. That was it. So that was November 2nd, 1980 at Corona Raceway. Be sure to subscribe and like and put your comments down below.